100 years ago, when I was at seminary, there was a guy there I got to know really well. His name was Donnie Storch, and Donnie was a music professor, actually, a music teacher at the college. If you go to Wilmore, Kentucky, there's one street and one stoplight and one grocery store, an IGA, and that's it, and a railroad track. And that's pretty much the whole town. On one side of the street is Asbury College. It's a 4-year Christian college. You can pretty much get any kind of liberal art degree or whatever there. On the other side of the street was the seminary, Asbury Seminary, where the men and now women go to be trained to give their lives in service to the Lord. Most of the college girls were working on their MRS degree, which stands for Mrs., because they were looking across the street going, I'm going to get me a preacher. And so we had to deal with that a lot. Anyway, the two schools shared a lot of stuff, particularly the incredible library there at the seminary. The college had a little library, but it wasn't really a whole lot of nothing. But the seminary had a fabulous library, and in that library they had some old sheet music and stuff like this. Anyway, long story short, old Donnie came over, and I saw him, and I said, what you doing? And he goes, oh, I'm just hanging out. What are you doing? He says, you want to walk? And I said, sure, I'll walk with you. So we walked, and he goes, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the library. I got to get, I lost all my sheet music for Messiah. We're doing Handel's Messiah over in the music choir class at the college. I said, I'm sure they got that in our library. So we went in there. Well, they only had one copy of it. So the one copy, the librarian, like 318 years old or something like that. You know, he's got 17 sets of glasses on. I'll be with you in a minute. Well, it's going to take her 2 days to walk from there to here to check this thing out. So Donnie just kind of took it and didn't tell anybody. So anyway, what Donnie did not know, and I did not know, but I found out later, which I thought was pretty funny, is a bunch of the churches in that area, in the little hollers and the big Methodist church there and all the other churches, were getting together with a community choir in the big Methodist church there on campus to do a presentation, a combined choir thing, for Christmas or Easter or whatever it was, I forget. Anyway, the thing was that all the churches were going to come together, all send their choirs, and they were going to do Messiah. Well, they were looking for the sheet music. They knew the library had it, so they went over to the library, and of course, the poor little old librarian, she didn't know where it was. They're gone. The Messiah is missing. I said, really? I can tell you where he is. He's on the cross. Anyway, I didn't think any more about it. Now, the churches were trying to call publishers and stuff and get all the new script and all that stuff. Anyway, I was in the library one day, a couple days later, and I was studying, and I guess Donnie had made copies of it or whatever and brought it back, and he knew that librarian was going to kill him for taking it out and not telling her. So he kind of, walked by and gave it the old, slid it back on the desk and ran away in the true spirit of Christian cowardice. I was sitting there in the library. Next thing I know, here's this 318-year-old lady yelling, the Messiah has returned! The Messiah has returned! I said, God, thank God. I'm not prepared for my theology test. I don't have to worry about it. The Messiah has returned. And she's waving that sheet music around, and I'm going, wow, there's somebody who saw God. That's a true story. That's a silly story, but it's a true story. I blame Donnie. But he did bring Messiah back to the seminary. Greatest event in human history. No other man or woman before Jesus Christ had ever died before and come back and said, behold, I am alive. No other man or woman after Jesus, even up till today, as far as I know, has ever died and come back to say, hey, I'm not dead. I know sometimes, ERs go clear, and people die for like 7 seconds or 8 seconds or whatever, and we bring them back. Not quite the same. One man. 6,000 years of existence, of recorded history anyway. 6,000 years. One guy. Out of all the billions on this earth, one guy. You know, the Lord in the Hebrews says, it is given to each man and woman to die but once. After which you have an appointment, which you will keep. That appointment is with God, whereupon a decision shall be rendered in your case. Nowhere does it say, once you die, yeah, we'll send you back. I know a lot of Hallmark movies are that way. There's lots of angels floating around in Hallmark. They're getting sent back all the time. But the fact of the matter is, in the reality of our own existence, there is no recorded anywhere of anybody being put to death and then coming back and saying, and showing 5,000 people, hey, I'm alive. I would call that, I don't know, you all make the judgment. I would call that probably the greatest event in human history, wouldn't you? Certainly one of the top three, come on. I know saran wraps, that's a pretty good thing too. But Jesus Christ saying there is an eternal world and I'm here and I'm promising it to you and I'm giving it to you. All you got to do is believe it exists. And I'm your ticket home. That's pretty big too. So you got Jesus, you got saran wrap. A lot of good stuff out there, but I'm going to put Jesus up at the top. And yet, according to John and the writing of his gospel, now remember who John is. He was the one that was closest to Jesus. Remember who John was. He was a big dumb fisherman. One of the sons of thunder, they called. You know why they called him that? Because he was a beer-guzzling, big-fisted, bar-fighting frolicker. He was a scoundrel, a rabble-rouser. I got other names, but I can't use them. I'm in church, for crying out loud. He was, as we would say in this day and age, a bit rough around the edges. John was not a little holy saint. Oh, he was a big, mean kind of woo, don't mess with John. Kind of like a Leroy Brown. And yet somehow, being exposed to God, being exposed to the love of Jesus Christ, that big fisted brawler somehow figured it all out. His heart, I truly believe, his heart was touched and filled by the Holy Spirit of God. Even more so than all the other guys. Oh, they all saw the same miracles. They all experienced the same teaching and listening. But only one figured it out. Only one no longer feared for his life and said, I'm going to Calvary. The others ran away and hid. Not John. You see, to John, Jesus Christ became that most crucial, critical event in the history of mankind. Did he understand it fully? No. But he was willing to give it a chance to make it a little bit more of a priority in his life than most people do. Throughout John's gospel, you know what he says over and over and over. You won't find this in the other gospels, only in John. You know what he says? You're missing it. You're missing it. When is Jesus going to become important to you? When? It's in John we see Jesus say, hey, we've played a flute for you and you didn't dance. We sang a dirge for you and you didn't cry. What's it going to take? We've given you everything from A to Z. But you're missing it. When will Jesus ever be a priority in your life? And John opens his gospel. There came a man named John to bear witness to the light. He was not the light, and he admits that. Are you the Messiah? No. Are you the light? No. Are you Elijah? No. Are you even a prophet that we should listen to you? And John's answer was no. And their reply was, well, then why are you baptizing these people? I baptize you with water, but there comes another one after me who will baptize you with truth and with fire. And he even stands amongst you right now, and you're missing it. Oh, the prologue of John's gospel speaks for the whole rest of it. You know why? Because John had 10 other buddies with him who missed it. They professed great faithfulness. I'll follow you even to death, said Peter. Jesus said, no, you won't. We'll stand by you no matter what, said the apostles. No, you won't. Each one of you will scatter like sheep. There will be one here who will not die before he sees the kingdom of heaven. Jesus was talking about John, even before John knew it. There will be one here found faithful who will not miss it. And I'm going to make sure he not only doesn't miss it, but the whole kingdom of heaven shall be open to him before he tastes death. And of course, John wrote the Revelation because he saw it. But back in his gospel, he writes, the light is here, it stands amongst you, and you're missing it. Why would John write such a thing? Well, first of all, he's trying to tell us that Christ brought light into this world. Now, John's the only disciple who confers or who equates Jesus and light together. And in many cases, if you study all the hundreds of passages where John refers to Jesus as the light of the world, or light, period, the meaning changes constantly. Sometimes light means wisdom. Jesus is the wisdom, the truth, as opposed to the nonsense or hopeful attitudes. This is the truth. Sometimes light means hope. Sometimes light means peace. Sometimes light means healing. Always, light is equated with life. Jesus says that which can give you life forever is here, and you're missing it. You know, this last rocket SpaceX just shot up. Anybody watch that? Big old thing. I watch them blast off from my front yard all the time. 30 miles away, and it's right there, right up my front door. They put a satellite in space, and when it passes over a righteous man, it beeps. Anybody hear it? I thought not. I hear it all the time. I can't even sleep at night because it's beep. Every 66 minutes, beep, beep. All right, I'm righteous. That's a true story, yeah. As silly as that sounds, I think that's how John thinks about Christ's coming in the world. It's right here. It's right in front of you. And you're missing it. How is that possible? You know what John references that the other Gospels don't? Remember when the people cried out, mostly the priests, give us a sign so that we will know you're from God. Give us a sign, then we'll believe. Then we'll make Christ a priority in our lives. Give us a sign. And how did Jesus respond? No sign will be given you except the sign, of Noah. Well, what is the sign of Noah? That's a story about a guy who built an aircraft carrier in the middle of the desert, at the scorn and ridicule of everyone who ever lived in that day and age. But nevertheless, he stayed faithful to the task. He completed the boat after about 70, 80 years. And said, boys, it's going to rain. It'd do you good to get on this boat. And they laughed. Who builds an aircraft carrier in the middle of a desert? Right up until the day God shut the door. You know, the door of the ark was so immense that God had to close it. It was so immense that the people knocking on the outside after the rain started and the floods came, open, open, open. Noah couldn't open that thing if he wanted to. It was too huge. It was too heavy. It was too big. 3 times we're told all life outside that ark perished. All life outside that ark perished. All life outside that ark perished. 3 times we're told all life on the ark came out to a new life and a new world. Nobody fell off the ark. Nobody got pushed overboard. Nobody died while they were on the ark. 8 people on that boat entered that boat. 8 people came out of that boat. Everyone else perished. Give us a sign that we can know who you are, and maybe we'll believe and make you a priority. And Jesus said, no sign shall be given you except the reminder of what happened to Noah. People were partying and drinking and marrying and burying and doing all that stuff they normally do on a day's agenda, right up until the day God shut the door of the ark. Then the opportunity was over, and even though it's an aircraft carrier in the desert, you missed it. Talk about missing the boat. That's where that phrase comes from. 8 people in the whole world were saved on a boat. The enormity untold. Give us a sign. We're still yelling at today, aren't we? If God had just worked a miracle, I'd believe. Yeah, right. And John wrote, there's one standing right in your own midst, right now. Jesus said, my spirit I give to you, my spirit will never leave you or forsake you. Right now, there's one in your spirit. Where 2 or more are gathered, there shall I be. He right now. And yet 7 days after Easter, America's churches are half full. They missed it. They put in their hour on Easter. It's like their life preserver, I guess. Remember the Titanic? Everybody see the movie Titanic? Okay, let's see if we can do a little better on this one than the Robinson Crusoe story. What was the great equalizer in Titanic? It's a story about a boat, remember? And it crashes into a big ice cube and down it goes. What was the great equalizer of Titanic? You ever figured it out? Ever think about it? See, this is the way my brain works. I think about this stuff all the time. You know, before, when, 2 love kids are running around the deck and everybody, the hoity-toities up in first class, oh, hey, pass the biscuits. Oh, here, quiet. And it's all the orchestras are playing and, all of this stuff and all the economy, second class people, they got to stay down in, a lower deck because they're not allowed up there where all the fancy people are. And then all the way down the bottom, you get the crew and the steerage and all the cargo and that kind of stuff. Those, the bilge rats, they're not allowed up in second class, let alone first class. So it was definitely the not good, the someday they might be good, and the good, right? What was the great equalizer? The ocean. Whoever said water? The ocean. Because once that boat went down, there's nothing more to stand on. And the orchestra went down, and the piano went down, and the ballroom went down, and the catered section went down. What was the great equalizer? Everybody in the water was freezing to death. No, yes, quite. Well, we're not going to freeze to death quite as fast as the others. Yes, you are. The great equalizer. Suddenly everybody was the same. Suddenly everybody stood in needs of grace, or at least a log to float on. The educated, the rich, the powerful, they died as easily as the poor and the crew and the steerage, the people down in the bilge. The swimmers and non-swimmers, makes no difference when you're in that cold of water. The strong and the weak, no difference. Male or female, smart or not so smart. Everybody stood in needs of grace. And this is John's theme throughout his gospel. But you know what? They missed it. You know what would be great if they reshot Titanic and let it be a sunk ship that comes back to the surface and picks everybody up that is dying in the water, and then everybody parties up in first class. Because they all realize, whoa, man, we almost all died. Yeah, come on up here, have a biscuit. Yeah, it's quiet. But see, that's where the Christians miss it. We're all standing in need of grace. We're all treading water. No sign will be given you except Noah. What does that mean, Lord? That means you better get on the boat. Get on the boat. Get on the boat. I once saw a stage play called 2 by 2. It's a story of Noah. And he's trying to explain to his wife and his daughter-in-laws that he needs to build this aircraft carrier in the middle of the desert. And of course they had a chorus. It was a musical. And they had a chorus. Every time he tried to explain it, this impassioned plea of God, they'd go, take him away, take him away, take him away. Because he was nuts. No sign will be given you except the sign of Noah. And they missed it. Everyone stands in the same need of grace because you are perishing in sin. And they missed it. One alone can save you, and he stands in your midst right now. And you don't even know it. You're going to miss it. Whose footprint do you think that is? God said, that's my footprint. You are not alone. See, Christ brought light into the world, that footprint in the sand, the Palestinian sand that said, I'm here. I'm your lifeboat. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. 7 days later, half the world of American Christendom doesn't care. Wow. Christ didn't just bring life, he brought, hopefully, for those who will see and who have ears to hear, a new way of living. You ever hear of the Diderot Effect? I read this week. It's very interesting. The Diderot Effect? Anybody? French psychologist, what was his name? Francois Diderot. And Francois Diderot wrote a book on what he called the Diderot Effect, and it was based on his own experience. He was given for a birthday a wonderful new evening jacket, and like silk lined and kind of a scarlet color and, very velvety, silk lined, velvety, scarlet colored evening jacket. Oh, yes, right. I need a French accent. Sauté bleu. And he wore the jacket, and okay, my French accent's a little weak. He wore the jacket, and he said he went, and he sat down in his favorite evening chair. And as he reclined, he came to a striking reality. Oh my, this chair is not suitable for this jacket at all. In fact, it's a bit shabby. The next day, he found himself going out and buying a new chair that matched his jacket so he could recline in perfect peace. That evening, he brought in the new chair, and he put on his jacket, and he reclined in perfect peace. Wait a minute. Well, that new chair is so beautiful, I can't have that old shabby sofa. That sofa's got to go. And then the carpet and the shades on the window, the light fixtures, when was the last time we put those up here? It's the Diderot Effect. So you change one little thing, and pretty soon you're finding all this other stuff just isn't measuring up anymore. Oh, that's Jesus Christ. Put Jesus Christ in your heart, put a little real love of God in your heart. Pretty soon some of that other part of Tanner ain't looking so good anymore. Now the Christian that's wise, as Mother Teresa told us, invite the Lord and His Spirit into each chamber or room of your being. Well, you can't go in there. That closet's full of stuff I don't even want to see. Let Him in. Get the new chair. Get the new sofas. You know, these drapes can be replaced. Lights. Come on, that's 18th century. What is this? This is 1901. Let's clean it up. The Diderot Effect is if we're truly amazed and truly appreciative of that which is pure, right, good, and perfect in our lives, it will probably begin to affect the rest of us if we let it. Jesus stand. I stand at the door and knock. You remember the rest of that verse? If anybody opens the door, what's going to happen? I'm going to say, howdy, and then go away? No. Jesus is going, the Son of God, the King of Kings, is going to come in and dine with you and sit and abide with you. Are you going to put Him in that ratty old chair? Some of you got some ratty old chairs in your hearts. That's the Diderot Effect. Not only are we missing the footprint in the sand that the pure light is here, but it's not taking or having any further effect in our lives other than, yep, that's Jesus' footprint right there. I seen it too. Sunday morning, Easter, my preacher is talking about a big old footprint. Son of God print. Right there. That's my hillbilly voice. But I'm not going to do anything with it. Why, it's just a footprint in the sand. There is one amongst you, writes John, who you do not know. 7 days ago, we were hooping and hollering about Easter, weren't we? The light of life came into the world, and He brought with us, if it's true light and we accept it, He brought with us a new responsibility to clean our lives up and then hopefully help others clean their lives up. It should be having some kind of effect here. All the other men ran away. John said, I'm going to Calvary. I'm not letting Jesus die by Himself. Where'd you get that strength? Well, something was different in John. See, love entered him. That's no wonder, no accident. He's called the most beloved disciple. He understood what love was. And it began to make a difference in his life, even to the risking of that life. I'm going to Calvary. Jesus ain't going to die alone. Not today, boys. And the others fled for their own life. Here, that's a nice footprint. See ya. Don't miss it. The rest is up to you. We've put on the new scarlet evening jacket. The question is, are we cleaning up our lives equally as well in all the aspects of our being? Are we preparing that when we hear the knock and we open the door, the King of Kings can in fact come and abide with us and will be unembarrassed? I want to close with a story about Herman and Elizabeth English. This is a story of a couple. I read this in the Covenant Family Altar. That's a devotional magazine you can all get online if you want. Warren and Elizabeth English are a couple that lives in Wisconsin. And it's a snowy, frigid Christmas day coming up. And they run a little kind of mercantile store, general sort of junk store. And they sold, and they got a big shipment of ice skates. And because she had accidentally put the wrong number on the order. So anyway, they had this truckload of ice skates. So they had a sale on ice skates. Well, in Wisconsin, you can move some skates up there. So she said the day before Christmas, they were just selling them like hotcakes. And all but one pair. One pair didn't, it was a little pair. One pair didn't sell. So she was exhausted and her husband was exhausted, and they put the skates back on the shelf, came home. They locked up the store and everything. They went to the evening church, Christmas Eve service. Anyway, next day they woke up, had breakfast together, still a little tired and all that. And she made a nice Christmas breakfast, and they ate breakfast, and they exchanged presents. They did the same thing all of us do, right? For some reason, she was cleaning up the breakfast dishes over the sink when she heard, this is her words, not mine, she heard the Lord say, "You need to take a walk." Well, she kind of sat there and said, "Yeah, right, it's freezing out there. It was snowed all night long. Still kind of snowing. It's up to here, And she heard it a second time, "You need to take a walk." And she goes, "That's ridiculous. I don't need to take a walk." A third time it came to her, "You need to take a walk." Well, she began to believe that this is God telling her to take a walk. She came outside, put on her jacket and her boots and all that stuff, came outside, and it had snowed all night long, so the snow was perfect. Nobody had messed it up yet, you know what I'm saying? And the snow was perfect except for one set of footprints that went from her door that way. So she figured, I need to take a walk. Well, what do you think she did? Followed the footsteps. And she walked. And she walked. And she walked. Is it dramatic yet? And she walked. She followed those footprints all the way to the front door of her store. Whereupon there was two little boys sitting there, little shorty, short, and a little kind of short. The older of the two was like 9. The younger was like 5 or 6. The older of the two said, "I told you she'd come." And the lady said to him, says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I prayed that Jesus would bring you." And she said, "Why? What's wrong, boys?" And he said, "My little brother here didn't get anything for Christmas. And he's always wanted skates. I have $3 of my own money. It's all I have." I said, "Well, he's pretty small. I do have one pair in there." So she opened up the shop and went in, and perfect fit. The boy tried to give her $3, said, "No, you keep your money and buy yourself some gloves. Why aren't you wearing gloves?" Now, little boys are not the brightest bulb in the lamp. And the little boys took the skates and ran off as if their very life had been given to them. Now, that's a nothing story, right? But see, what happened was she locked her store back up and she started walking home, and she said it was almost as if I didn't even have to walk, I could just float. She's a big woman too. A lot of floating. She said the whole rest of the day was a little brighter. She felt better. The food tasted better. She was kinder to her husband. Just everything was fabulous. The snow, which is so cold, bitter, and usually miserable, was just the most beautiful thing she ever had. She felt childlike again. "Oh, Tom, you're just making that up." No. Elizabeth Warren is making that up. I'm just telling you what she wrote. Sometimes, as Jesus told us, even the smallest obedience, even the smallest obedience, you need to take a walk. Do you trust me? Do you believe me? Have you seen the dang footprint in the snow? Follow it. And do it now. And John writes his gospel. You know, John is the most personable gospel of all of them, all four of them. We learn about love, we learn about light, we learn about life in John. There came a man sent from God whose name was John, and he came that he might bear witness of the light. He was not the light himself, but came that he might point it out, would bear witness of it. Are you the Christ? I am not the Christ, answered John. Are you Elijah? I am not Elijah. Are you even a prophet? No. Then why are you? What are you? I am one crying, a voice crying in the wilderness, to make straight your path for the way of God. And even now there's one that stands amongst you that for whatever reason you don't even know. You missed it. Right there in the middle of the Palestinian desert was the footprint of the living God. Just like Robinson Crusoe on that island, I am no longer alone. And the entire dynamics of his existence shifted to include a greater community. And the most heart-wrenching words in all of the Gospel of John and all of the Bible in my personal opinion, Lord, won't you open unto us? Lord, I went to church Christmas and Easter. Lord, I sang the hymns. I put in my hour. And the answer from the other side of the door said, depart from me, for I do not know you. Let us pray. Holy Father, I thank you this morning for your word. People are right. Easter's over. Now what? Well, now we start cleaning up our act. We put on your holy jacket and we start cleaning up our unholy selves. And we can only do that if we make you a priority. So help each one here to not just see, but to follow that footprint in the sand. That together we can set you as a priority and follow the path that leads to life eternal. We ask in Jesus our Christ. Amen.